Welcome to the 2020 Philadelphia Film Festival. My name is Michael Lerman. I'm the artistic director here, and I'm really pleased to have this full house of creatives here for this screening of Freeland. We have writers and directors Mario Furloni and Kate McLean. We have the stars of the movie, Frank Mosley and Krisha Fairchild, and the producer of the movie, Laura Heberton. How are you guys doing? How are you holding up in this time of COVID?
All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as can be.
I want to start with asking Mario and Kate kind of where the idea of the movie came from, and we loved it so much because it's such sort of an outsider story and a story that we feel like it's a character that you don't see much on screen. And I was hoping you could talk about the germ of the idea just to kick us off.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that, Mario?
Oh, sure. This started 10 years ago when Kate and I were in graduate school together for journalism and documentary program. And Kate, who's from Northern California, not where we filmed, but a few hours south of there, convinced me to go up on a scouting trip. And she said, "There's a movie there." This is for a doc at the time, and we made a short doc together, and then we kept finding reasons to go back there. It's such an amazing place, and we met such incredible people, and we kept going back there and finding a way to tell that story in a different way. And we landed on doing it as a fiction film, and I think it was kind of a process of stripping away some of the things. The first script we had when we showed Laura, we met Laura like 7 years ago at IFP. The first script we had was full of these sort of like conventional, narrative things that we thought we needed. And then it was a process of like stripping those things away and getting to, the kernel of the story that we wanted to tell. So, yeah. This film so much kind of lives and dies on the cast, and I think the casting is impeccable. Can you talk about how you found these two and basically everyone else, and maybe you guys can chime in if you want in terms of the experience of latching onto the project?
I mean, I can say that Laura brought Krisha to our attention, and the moment that Mario and I watched Krisha, we thought, this is our person. And I think one of our proudest accomplishments while we were shooting was that someone tried to pick up Krisha at the health food store because she felt so much in and of the place that they were like, who is this beautiful woman who belongs so much here? And how do I get her to come home with me from the health food store? So Krisha was essential to the whole thing. And when Laura helped us get Krisha on board, we started having these conversations with Krisha. And then Krisha, when we finally convinced her that she had to be in this film, was kind enough to dream and brainstorm about the rest of the cast with us. And then she made calls to this dream team of people that she wanted to work with. And that's how we got Frank and how we got Lily Gladstone. So really, it started with Laura bringing us Krisha, and then Krisha became the linchpin of our universe, and she brought us Frank and Lily.
Frank and Krisha, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the process? Was there a lot of rehearsal for you? Was there a lot of kind of, I feel like it really feels like a family that's worked together. And so I wanted you guys to spend time together and that sort of thing.
Go ahead, Krisha.
Well, we lived like a family while we were shooting it. That was one of the things. And we shared all our meals together. And for my sake, they did kind of short shooting days. And so we had the chance to sit around over dinner and talk about the next day and plan out things. There wasn't formal rehearsal except what happened on the set. There was a lot of emailing and backstory figuring out and intention work and everything between the actors. And then we would kind of like come to Mario and Kate and say, okay, so this is what you've written, and we would like to underneath there also put this, this, and this. And they were always open to it. And then very often we would improv. But I have to say, I was looking at it the other day, and I feel like, at least in my case, at least 80%, I would say, of the script, it was scripted. And then we kind of riffed around it a little bit, but we were living like a family, and I think you can feel it. I think it always shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it was what she said. We'd worked through the scenes. I think the really amazing part was that we got to build the characters ahead of time with Mario and Kate's help to figure out who they were, if they were archetypal, like what made them distinct from one another, especially within the family group dynamic, to make them really stand out and to spar and to contrast with each other and create friction. So that was really cool to kind of throw ideas around with them. They had a beautiful lookbook that they shared, photography of the area. And so that helped kind of get a sense of like wardrobe and bringing what you could from home, like what would work. And then they also found wardrobe there for us to wear. I think the hoodie that I wear in the last sequence was Claire, our amazing jackknife, pocket knife of producer, location manager person on the film, who was our connection to Humboldt. I think it was her dad's hoodie. And when she gave me that hoodie, it's like I immediately just sank into it. I was like, well, this just did everything for this scene. Like me putting on this hoodie with these shorts just solved like how I feel in the scene now. Like it took care of everything.
Yeah, in films like this, I mean, like Frank says, we were doing our own hair, makeup, wardrobe. We were part of the crew. That's the gig. And one of the things I loved about the process is that I had to get us from point A to point Z, literally. You know, I mean, you had to really like her through most of it. And then as she started to unravel, that, you know, there were a lot of other things required. And because these actors are process actors, and these directors and writers both had done documentaries, so they're used to things that develop. Mm-hmm. What we did is that we kind of at each day, we would go, okay, where do we need to get? Where do I need to end this day? Where do you need to end this day? Where do you need to end this day? And we all made sure that we all got to that place by the end of each day of work, which is amazing. It was completely selfless. There was no prima donna energy from anybody. We were a team, creating the best we could. A game, everyone. So I love that part.
To that point, I just say everybody listened. There was an incredible amount of listening that was on this set. Everybody listened to each other, and like whether it was like learning about how we should be from Claire or from the area, or like, you know, us listening to the vision that we knew that Kate and Mario had, but then at the same time, if like something didn't feel right, they were like, tell us what you think. We're open, we'll talk about it, we'll workshop it. So when like Krisha brought up that we didn't really have rehearsals, I would say that they treated we'd roll on the rehearsal take. So, and we just keep shooting until we would like explore and find new avenues. So it was like summer camp, you know.
Right.
I jump in here for a second because I do want to say that I really think that's the strength of Mario and Kate as documentary filmmakers, extraordinarily good documentary filmmakers, making a fiction film, is that I think for great doc directors is the ability to listen and to really like absorb what's happening in front of you. And I think that's a real gift they brought to this process. Again, they were extraordinarily lucky to be working with such very talented people who also listened on their end too. But I really think, that openness that comes from their background as doc filmmakers really brought a lot to this process.
Yeah, it's an apt time to take this audience question that it's for Mario and Kate about the transition from doing doc to narrative, and where do you feel like your future lies after this? One or both, or how do you feel?
I feel like our future is in both. I feel like, you know, we treat each story and see what's the best way to tell it. You know, if it's by finding a real person and following that real person or group of people, or by fictionalizing enough in order to create a remove, or by, you know, in order to create to land in the exact sort of dilemma that we want to explore, etc. So I don't know. I don't think at least I don't feel like I'm in one camp or another. And in fact, I think that the distinction is very blurry for me right now.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think it was a wonderful sort of process of learning on set and working with actors, you know, for really the first time. And Krisha and Frank couldn't have been better teachers in many ways. And I think in that sense, we really approached it as documentarians, where we tried to say, you know, from a place of humility, like, I have no presumption about how this should go. What do you need? And like, how can we collaborate to do this thing together? And even though I think maybe hopefully we'll know more going in next time, I think approaching something from that same collaborative space is really, like, in doc and in fiction, how I like to work, you know?
I wanted to ask Laura, I think there's a thing about, you know, it's not lost on me kind of the scope of this production, even with it being a low budget indie where Krisha said you bring your own costumes and this sort of thing. Just, you know, it's a big location. It feels like a very well lived in town in terms of the places that you're using. And I was curious about production challenges in terms of finding the place to shoot this, you know, making it all happen and making it feel so authentic in front of the camera.
Well, there are two parts to that. One big part is Claire Weisblutz, whom Frank mentioned earlier, who is a filmmaker herself and an editor, and she grew up in that town and you know, grew up outside that town, and she's a part of that whole community. So because of Claire's you know, understanding of that world and access, that was very helpful. But also Kate and Mario spent years literally going up there and spending time and getting to know the world of Freeland. So there was a lot of research that went into that. Again, I will say, I think one of the reasons why it looks so real and beautiful is because of Mario's phenomenal cinematography. So you know, there you go. It's all that talent, really. So.
I want to ask Krisha specifically, do you feel like you put a lot of research into the character and, you know, into the sort of documentary side of it in terms of understanding it before arriving?
Yeah, Kate and Mario were kind enough to send me the books that I then shared with Frank. There are a couple of good books about the area, and I had friends who had lived that life. I almost lived it myself at one point. I was offered that life, and the sliding door way, I kind of chose a different life. So I picked brains, I read books, and then I said, whichever, you know, is what I have been lucky enough to have the luxury to do in my acting career. Then I said, okay, where is me in her and where is her in me? And how do we best achieve this and honor what they've given me and also honor what I think and feel is where she should go. So research, absolutely. I'm also, I'm kind of method in that things I attach to things. I have things that are the person's things. And when I touch them or put them on or carry them or whatever, then I use them to get in and out of the character. And once I started finding her hooks, it's like she wanted a voice. I mean, she really was a character who, I had seen the short that they did called Pot Country, and that woman that was kind of the basis for us was very guarded and very businesslike, and I was like, okay, we got to put that in. And so I just kind of looked for all the different things she was going to need, and I let her kind of happen. And the script had been crafted so beautifully. When I first saw the script, it was a mother-daughter story. It was a more contemporary story, and as over time, as I wasn't available, or they weren't available, or the daughter wasn't available, and things like this that happened, we lost the daughter. She had a family crisis, and they decided, well, what the heck? Let's just try it, you know. And so they rewrote it central around me, and then we created the family, her family, which was so key. And I did research, but most of it came from inside.
and you kind of touched on this, though. I feel like this is an audience question for everyone potentially, is the theme of being pulling someone or being pushed into modern times. Was that something you found on set, or was those things that came from in your life that you would pull from?
For me to play it, I absolutely have spent my whole life trying to live in a different time. I don't buy new furniture. I don't buy new cars. Everything I own, I bought at a thrift store or a garage sale. All I had to do was imagine how I would feel if my entire life that I had hand built had been facing this. And I've always been angry around capitalism my whole life. And there I am, somebody hands me a role where I get to be the victim of capitalism. Yeah. I was just like, yeah. So that my feeling is, from my standpoint, I've been wanting to get to say these things. And when I got up there, the angrier I got.
Yeah.
So
one thing that helped us was that the first thing we shot was the scene where Devi goes to the convention. Mm-hmm. So Krisha had just flown into town. And the very next day, we shot that scene, and we had some more plot in that scene originally, like built in. Krisha actually had hand sewn like lots of little baggies, and she had like filled in with like, you know, the idea was that she would fill it with her products, and she was going to try to distribute it there and find a distributor. And once we got there, we were like surprised by how tied to capital and how technologically advanced that place was. We couldn't have dreamed that place. We couldn't have, like, if we were production designing that place, we would have gotten it all wrong. Like, but we were, and we, instead what we did was just like, let's film it like we'd film a verite scene. You know, Krisha's in character, Debbie, let's just follow her with the camera and sound, and like, you know, kind of Borat style almost, right?
Except I kept my clothes on.
And it was amazing, right? Like, and then everything else, we had that, we knew where things were going to go. So once we traveled to Humboldt, and then suddenly you're in a different era, right? Like, and so, but we had that in the back of our minds. Oh, she's going to go to that hellhole at some point. And that really helped, I think.
I think it's a good transition into my last question, which is that I think this movie, very much like really good documentaries, poses a lot of questions and problems in the underlying kind of socioeconomic, not to be lofty about it, but tragedy that's there of capitalism and of this dilemma, as you said. And I'm wondering if any of you have kind of concrete thoughts on what can be done, should be done in the world right now to address these problems.
If I say my thoughts, Donald Trump will attack me.
It's something that's been in my mind since I saw the movie. You know, it's like, because it is so moving, and I think it's so moving in the way it addresses this dilemma. So,
I mean, it's interesting because we sort of made the movie in one world, and the world is so very different from the moment when the film was being made. And what I could have never predicted when we were like at that convention 2 years ago now, as we were shooting this, is that this idea of profound economic loss would be upon so many people simultaneously. And this feeling of kind of an increasing like encapsulation and cocooning as the world becomes overbearing and you lose your footing. That would become a universal human experience. I knew that it was somewhat universal because I do think that there are lots of people of a certain generation who are feeling this in their long-term fields, you know, well before COVID and kind of economic collapse. But we never could have predicted how timely that sort of loss would have felt right now. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, as film festivals started shutting down and this crisis really started emerging, I wondered, how will it feel to people to watch this? Is it going to be too painful to see this in a way when it resonates possibly with your own experience, or is that cathartic? And it's still an open question to me, but one of the wonderful experiences of doing this great festival run that we're getting to participate in with you and others is seeing that there's some value in the experience of seeing Debbie's loss for a lot of people. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
no, actually, in a way, you inadvertently said, I think, what was the most beautiful answer, which is that the film is a solution in a way. The film is something that, like, sharing that experience and talking about it and thinking about it when you're doing these things. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's where you went with it. So it's
That's why we make art, really. Yeah, sorry, Kate. Yeah.
No, yeah, just like human connection, I think, in times of loss and isolation is possibly one anecdote.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna take everyone, so every anecdote we can come up with. So. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for coming and sharing the film and giving us your thoughts on it. It's such a beautiful film, and we were really honored to have it. So Really
Thank you so much.
We're honored. We're honored to be a part of the festival. We really are. I mean, it's just such a fantastic lineup, and we love the group that we're in competition with. It's amazing. So really, thank you, and thank you to all of your Film Society members for watching, and other people watching too. We really appreciate it. So.
And thank you guys. Thank you, audience, for watching. And I want to remind you to vote for the audience award as well, which should be right there on your screen below us. So.
Okay.
You all take care of yourselves, all of you. All of you take care of yourselves out there, okay?
Yes.